Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into one of the biggest questions ever asked. Where did all the incredible, weird, wonderful diversity of life on Earth actually come from?
I mean, just think about it. This whole story has unfolded over billions of years. It's a process that's turned our planet from a barren, lifeless rock into the vibrant world we know, just teeming with millions of unique species. So how did this happen? Well, to answer that, we basically need to become detectives. We're going to follow the clues that scientists have been piecing together for centuries. So let's start our investigation with one of the first major theories. Our story begins way back in the early 19th century. Our first suspect is a really compelling but, as it turns out, incorrect theory from a French naturalist named Jean-Baptiste de Lamarck. Lamarck came up with this idea called the inheritance of acquired characteristics. It sounds complicated, but the idea is simple. He thought that traits an animal develops during its lifetime, like, say, a giraffe constantly stretching its neck to reach higher leaves, could be passed down directly to its kids.
It's a pretty elegant idea, right? It kind of makes sense. But was it true? You see, science isn't about what just seems right, it's about what you can actually prove. So the big question was, how could you possibly test this? Well, the plot twist came from a guy named August Weismann and his experiments with mice. What he did was, he removed the tails from mice for 22 straight generations. And yet, every single new litter was born with perfectly normal, long tails. This simple, powerful experiment proved it. Traits you acquire during your life are not inherited. So our first theory was officially debunked.
Okay, so with Lamarck's idea off the table, the case kind of went cold. The world of science needed a whole new explanation, a new detective to crack this mystery wide open. And he arrived in the form of a young naturalist named Charles Darwin. From 1831 to 1836, Darwin took this epic 5-year voyage around the world on the HMS Beagle, and the whole time he was just meticulously collecting clues. His most famous stop, of course, was the super remote Galapagos Islands. He was finding all sorts of things. He found fossils that looked strangely similar to living species. He noticed that animals on one island were just a little bit different from the ones on the next island over. And he was also reading some really groundbreaking new ideas. One that suggested the Earth was way, way older than people thought, and another about the constant struggle for existence in the natural world. When Darwin finally got back to England, he started piecing all these clues together like a giant puzzle. And eventually, he had his huge aha moment. He had a revolutionary theory, and he called it natural selection. And here's how it works in 4 pretty simple steps. 1, organisms produce way more offspring than can possibly survive. 2, every individual within that species is a little bit different. There's always variation. 3, because there are too many of them, they have to compete for limited resources. And 4, this is the key. The ones with the variations best suited to their environment, they're the ones who tend to survive and reproduce, passing those winning traits on. But you know, a great theory needs great evidence. You can't just have an idea. Now that Darwin had his mechanism, he had to build the case. And the evidence that he and other scientists would gather, well, it came from pretty much every branch of biology. First step, the fossil record. I mean, the story is literally written in stone. It shows this incredibly clear timeline. In the oldest layers of rock, you find the simplest fossils. Then, as you move up through younger rocks, you see more complex life appearing in a sequence. First fish, then amphibians, then reptiles, and then mammals. It's all right there. Next, the evidence is mapped in our very bones. This field is called comparative anatomy, and it reveals something called homologous structures. These are body parts that look different on the outside but share a common underlying design. Just look at these 4 limbs: a human arm, a cat's leg, a horse's leg, a bat's wing, a dolphin's flipper. They're all used for totally different things, walking, flying, swimming, but they are all built from the same ancestral set of bones. That just screams shared ancestry. And today, we have evidence that is maybe the most powerful of all. It's coded in our very DNA. Modern molecular biology lets us compare the DNA and proteins between species with incredible precision. Take hemoglobin, for example. A rhesus monkey's is super similar to ours, only 8 differences. A lamprey's has 125. The fewer the differences, the closer the relative. It's an open and shut case. And what about our own bodies? Well, we are walking, talking evidence of our own past. We have things called vestigial structures, like the appendix or our tailbone, or even the tiny muscles that used to move our ears, that are basically just leftovers from ancestors who actually needed them. This is truly wild. Even our own development as embryos tells this deep historical story. For a while, human embryos have these things called gill arches. Now, they don't become gills, obviously. They actually develop into parts of our jaw, our ear, and our throat. It's like nature is reusing an ancient blueprint, modifying a plan inherited from our very, very distant fish-like ancestors. So, with all that evidence, case closed, right? The detective story is over? Well, not exactly. See, the great detective story of evolution isn't just about the past. And this is probably the most important takeaway of all. Evolution isn't something that just happened a long time ago. It's an ongoing process. It is happening right now, all around us. We can see it in bacteria developing resistance to our antibiotics, or in something as common as city pigeons adapting to urban life. And that leaves us with a final, big thought to chew on. As our world changes, and it's changing faster than ever, how will the story of life be written next? The story is still being written, and we're a part of it. Makes you wonder what adaptations the future might hold, doesn't it?